Yes.
It seems to me that the tension between religion and science is tied together with the tension between the male and the female.
Interesting.
I look around here, and this room has always had more females than males. Any time we've been together.
And any of my talks on science and religion, mostly women. Yep, with a handful of men.
And so my question is, and I see this blurring of our roles, at least in the last 40 to 50 years, is very noticeable. And so I'm wondering, from your point of view as a female scholar and everything you've talked about, is there a role in the future for a male that's strongly masculine?
Yeah, that's interesting, actually, because I do see it shifting as well. I think the traditional male role that we have seen up to the 21st century, is in the process of transition. I see it again, if I think of young people, in terms of the gender, the fluidity among gender roles. That whole thing is shifting and changing. So I do see perhaps a new, and I wouldn't call it androgynous, but maybe a rebalancing of male-female up ahead in a new way. It's funny, as a woman, I've been in male disciplines all my life. As a scientist, I was in an area that had maybe 5 women in the world, I think, working in what I was doing. In theology, it was still pretty much male-dominated when I entered into it. And I never thought anything that I was a woman in a man. I just did it. And so I do think that, I think what you're seeing is very interesting, and I do think as technology continues to shift the boundaries of personhood, as we move into a type of what I might call a post-human world or a transhuman type of world, we will begin to see perhaps a shift in the emphasis on maleness versus femaleness. Even that language might dissolve, and that what we have is personhood. And maybe that's what we need to come, because I don't know if you know anyone who's transgendered, but when you get to transgendered people, it's personhood. It's neither male nor female. I mean, you're dealing with a whole different level of personhood. And maybe that's a good thing, because what it's about is personhood. We have so defined persons by their gender, and out of that gender, ascribe to them a role, and then we've limited what they're capable of, even intellectually. And so perhaps this is a good that will emerge through a technologically driven world. The best is yet to come. Who knows? We'll have to create a new type of person. And even probably hormonally we're changing, as we change technologically. I might say that. Yes?
Thank you. I just kind of want to get up and scream and dance right now.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, go for it. Yeah, I mean, Oh, God. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, it's true. It's not true because I said it. It's because I can see it, And again, I think of my undergrads, the question of gender, they're not there. I mean, that's an old person's question, quite honestly, and it's an old person's problem. Younger generations, they're completely at home. Whether you're gay, you're lesbian, you're gay, you're transgendered, whatever you are is fine. What they know is, what do you like? Do you like Facebook? Are you on social media? And can they Facebook you? So.
My question is about going back to death, if we're going to re-envision death, thinking about re-envisioning health and illness and wellness. And I think about where health and illness occurs or doesn't occur, and I think about healthcare systems, and it's so broken. And I think about technology being the center of that brokenness. And I think about, could we re-envision healthcare happening where the hospital for the sick really is? Could we envision healthcare happening among us? I'm not sure if you're familiar with Chasing the Scream, Johan Hari's book.
No.
He was a British journalist that investigated addiction. And he said that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection.
Mm.
It's a beautiful book about addiction and understanding where addiction comes from. And so I just wonder about this reconfiguring the idea of what death is, also reconfiguring the idea of what health, illness, wellness, and where it really occurs and where it doesn't occur.
Yes, right. That's a huge question, and very complex. But I think what you said there, technology as being at the heart of a broken system, there's, I think, a truth to that, because we keep trying to prolong life, and we have this kind of need to perfect that which is broken. We're going to invent, and to an extent that is good. If I can, get a blind person to see through a technological device, that's great. But if I'm 99 years old, how much more do we want to keep sustaining life? The questions of life and death, and when do we let go? So I might rephrase that in this way. I think what we have failed to realize is that every moment of life is a moment of death for us. Every act, every choice that we make, is a type of dying. Soren Kierkegaard once said, every choice is 1,000 renunciations. Every time we choose something, we are saying no or dying to every other thing that could have been. And so I think we need to begin to see death as part and parcel of life, so that this kind of end-of-life situation doesn't come at us like some great shock or some great surprise. That, Francis of Assisi said, blessed are those who endure the first death, for the second death will do them no harm. That we are, in a sense, living death and life each day. So that at the moment, when death arrives, physical death, we have already, in a sense, been born into a new life, as we're traveling this path, both inwardly and outwardly. So as for the system itself, that's a really tough one, because it's so complex now and so just laden with layers and layers of, between the whole financial side of the system, the regulations of the system, the influx of technologies in the system. I mean, doctors are leaving medicine because it's becoming so incredibly complex now. And maybe we just need to go back to some kind of homeopathic medicine, or maybe the Native Americans really just, maybe we can learn from them again how to die gracefully, and go back to the earth, So good luck on that one. Yeah. Yes.
Do you think that when we have an out-of-the-body or the alleged out-of-the-body experience, we're having an actual separation as represented of the spirit or soul from the physical body? Which raises the question, does the brain create consciousness in vitro, or is it merely a vehicle that interfaces with our time and space bubble? Yeah. Which then raises a question to what is actually evolving, the animal body or consciousness itself, which then creates the animal body.
Right. So, if I give you the Teilhardian answer, shorthand, he would say that evolution is consciousness. So what he's saying is that consciousness is the driver of evolution. And that when consciousness complexifies, when consciousness changes, and it's a kind of a twofold thing, like consciousness changes as this complexity takes place. I mean, if I give you just a concrete example, as we have come to know the globe through internet, we've come to know our consciousness has been shifting certainly in the last 30 to 40, 50 years. And we have developed a whole new understanding of ourselves, which has, in a sense, impelled a new sense of self in the world. We're not even the same people that we were 50 years ago. We may, again, we look the same, sort of, but we think quite differently, and we're making choices quite differently. So consciousness, I take the mind, I don't think that's limited to what's in my cranium, in the 3 pounds here. I think the mind is the field of activity that includes the body. And this would be like, Antonio Damasio's work on Descartes' error, that for so long we thought the body had nothing to do with the mind. Now we know that the mind flows throughout the body. It's our senses, our fields of activity. The idea of we can intuit things. We don't know it intellectually, but we feel, because there's something of a field of consciousness there that, our bodies are, in a sense, touching upon. So as our consciousness shifts, we then shift. We are attracted to new things. We complexify in a new way. And as consciousness shifts, we begin to attract into new things. We make relationships in new ways. Consciousness then emerges in a new way. And you begin to see the cycle, over and over again. So
from the physical body.
Even at death, does it? I don't think so. I think the body is a lot of energy packed into form, and so I don't think in fact, I think if I take death here as maybe the final separation of self, I think that separation of self is a transformation of what we are into full consciousness. In other words, pure mind, pure love, with pure God, if I can say it that way, but not in a way that we're without body. We actually now acquire a new body, and I think that body might be a whole new relationship with the cosmos at large, where we are our core personality, conscious as core personhood, now in a new matrix of relatedness with God, cosmos, and the whole of Anthropos, past, present, and future. That's my idea on resurrection. I don't know if it's going to be true, but now, okay, yes, please, in the back.
I'm really excited
great.
about the vision that you presented. If you look at history, every time there's been a major reinterpretation of how the world is, there's been major societal changes after that. And the transition period is usually very chaotic and may last for several hundred years. And it seems to me that right now, with evolution, the dynamics of evolution, and the interrelationship of quantum, which is really just about 120 years maximum, that's a whole new understanding. And we're in this chaotic transition phase. And so what you're giving me is a vision of where we may be going. And that's very hopeful.
Yes, thank you.
I really appreciate that.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. And that's exactly right. I mean, we are coming out of centuries out of thinking about being, about matter, about spirit in a certain way, about God in a certain way. And the two significant pillars of modern science, evolution, quantum physics, have overturned everything we have known and are ushering in a whole new understanding. And that's why, we need to begin to think anew now, these same realities that empower our lives, but in a new way for life up ahead. And that's why I'm here. Yes?
Yeah. And the new way that really needs to be a lot of thinking, in my opinion,
yes, it does,
is religion.
Yes, absolutely.
And so
that's exactly
keep
right.
up what you're doing.
Thank you. You can join the Omega Center. You'll get the... Thank you. Yes, so now, it's at 2:31. Do you need a stand-up break? All right, we're moving into now our last session of our time together. And basically, I just want to sort of collate, bring together, a lot of the things that we have talked about. And, just to kind of reaffirm that I guess my work and my contribution to this is as a theologian of a future. I am about creating and inventing religion for the 21st century. I did mention very briefly, and actually the church here has been very supportive of the Omega Center, which is, so you can go on and you can sign up and read new blogs, and we're really trying to create a center. And I see it more and more, like we have the school of the mystics. We need now a school of the future, of future thinking in religion, and that's where I think Omega Center can play a role. So we are saying that religion is, you might say, the name of the game in the 21st century. Rather than being marginalized and seeing it receding, we need to harness this spiritual energy for the forward movement. Thomas Merton once said, anyone who proclaims him or herself Christian and believes in the risen Christ must be on the way toward a transcultural consciousness and transcultural encounters. I think the name Christian connotes an openness to where God is at work and God's love is manifest. So, there we are. Okay. Oh, yes. Oh, how about that? Technology is beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. So, this is what Teilhard said, as I've written in my books, that religion must grow and redefine itself. And we don't think of religion as growing, nevertheless redefining itself. He said, the kind of religion we lack cannot be found in the religious traditions of the past, which are linked to static categories. And we said this briefly yesterday. He said, what is needed is a new religion full of dynamics and conquests, one that can use all the free energy of the earth to build humankind into greater unity. And we see the seeds of this all over, even with technology, but we don't have a form to really gather it together into a type of form with prayers, with a type of worship service, with a type of sacramentality that might actually define it as a new type of religious spirit. So he did think that religions need to come together and dialogue, and this happened in the 70s and 80s. It sort of dwindled in the last 20 years. And that doesn't mean kind of, a vanilla blending of religions. We kind of throw them in a blender and chop them all up. Rather, it's more like, how can we glean the depth and the wisdom of the various traditions so that we can see the earth together and our lives, our future together with a new vision? He said, traditional religion of earth and heaven is insufficient. And we realize this today with young people. He said, we're looking for this new kind of religion where it's not just faith in God, but it's faith in this world. And this is where I think we might have faith in God, but do we have faith in this world? And I see a lot of distrust in the world. And this kind of hanging on to God, like it's the old God will save us, idea. But what Teilhard is saying, the whole thing is Christ. You cannot trust the God you cannot see unless you trust the world that we see. And so he says this then is our source of great spiritual energy. He did realize, this is Teilhard writing in the 20s and 30s. Isn't this just amazing? The stasis of religion is the stifling of evolution. If we keep religion bound, if we keep it boxed, if we keep it marginalized, we cannot evolve toward more being, more consciousness, more unity. So again, he says, no longer this religion of the individual in heaven, but a new type of religion where without it, we can't breathe. And that's what I find today. We're sort of asphyxiated. We don't trust the earth as the place of God. We can't find that religious spirit among us, and we're sort of culturally and globally asphyxiated. And what do we do when the air is going out of us? We're going to cling for our own individual lives. And that creates the conditions for war. That then creates the conditions for separation. So Teilhard has this vision of planetization, which is this, and what he really envisions is a new world soul. The Platonic idea of the world soul. What would a new world soul mean for us? What would that look like? He says technology has globalized the earth, but our religions are tribal and the secular remains opposed to the sacred. When, in fact, Christianity says the whole of the secular is sacred. And so he says, even our creeds, they're still concerned and provide every human with an individual line of escape. And that's what the traditional religions do. They're individual lines of escape. And so, my religion, means I'm going to follow this way, because I'm going to be saved this way, and you're heathens, and you're heretics, and we need to get rid of you. And he says this does not allow any room for global and controlled transformation of the whole. All we do is we have conflict. And so, going back to him, he says the same thing, that we're asphyxiated. I think I double this here. But here's what, I love this saying of Teilhard. In a system of cosmonoogenesis, just the language itself is very interesting. A system of cosmonoogenesis, the comparative value of religious creeds may be measured by their respective power of evolutive activation. It's no wonder the Jesuits didn't really publish his writings, Does the creed empower us? Do what we profess as religious beings, does it empower us not simply to go on another day, but to evolve? To evolve means to believe that the future is our prime reality, that, convergence and complexity and consciousness are what motivate us. So what Teilhard sees is the type of church. Now, he was one who believed in the power of ecclesia, church. And he saw that church not as a teaching church, but as a living church, a living gathering. And in one hand, I could see Teilhard envisioning the whole globe as church. Could you imagine this gathering, around centers of spiritual meaning? But he sees church as a new phylum of love. So here's what Teilhard is. He's an evolutionary biologist who sees religion on the flow of biological emergence. Church is not just something spiritual. Church is biological. It's a new phylum, a new species. In other words, to profess yourself as Christian or whatever, we are to be a new species, a Christified species in his view. And this, in a sense, he said, this reflectively Christified portion of the world. We are to be the prime movers of evolution. Like, not just the ones who talk about it, but we're supposed to be the evolvers. We're the Christifiers. We're this axis of convergence and personalization. And that really, for most religious people, they're like, what about contemplation? What about... So we're moving from the inward self now to the planetized self. And that's, I think, the next step here. We need that inward self. We need the self that becomes then transformed in relationality, in love, but now moving to a different level of being. So what do we do, in this life that we are? I think our being here is an invitation because we are the Christifiers. Evolution now is occurring through us. As you're sitting here and thinking and praying and wondering, why did I spend 2 days listening to all this? It's too much for me, my little head. What we're saying is we need to trust the world, and we need to trust one another in the world, and we need to trust the future. All of which we haven't been doing. We have been acting as in Survivor. That's why that reality show, Survivor, is so popular, because it's us, right? We're stranded on an island, They're going to be out to get us. The food supply is going to run out. Who's going to make it? And I think we need new television shows. I don't know if anyone's here in the TV, but we need new media. We need media that will instill in us a zest for life. It's a word I used yesterday. We barely have a zest for life because we're not even sure what life is really about. We're just hoping we can get through and have a nice day with a smiley face, Have a nice day. So, what we do know today from neuroscience is that even in terms of the brain, We're a process and an unfolding. And what if we began to think of ourselves in this way, in this language? We're not fixed. We're not, this is it, and we act as if this is it. It's all fixed. It's all over. We're going to run out of our resources. They're going to come and take us over. We're not going to be the United States anymore. We've got to defend ourselves. It can be annihilation by this evening. It's exhausting, for one thing. Second, it's depressing. Third, it's not true. Okay? The thing is, we're evolving, and we never stop evolving. And if we don't evolve, someone else will evolve. And I think we have to say, if we're alive, we're always beginning. We're never at the end. Gregory of Nyssa had that wonderful saying, every end is a new beginning. Every arrival is a new departure. Life, even death, is a new beginning. We begin over and over and over again. And so we need a new consciousness. We need a consciousness of being in evolution. And that's where we need work. We need to rewire our thing. Younger generations, by the way, I think they're much better. They get this much. It's the older generations that have a mentality of fixedness, of static. But we have to recognize that, we are on a path of change and convergence. Teilhard said before, the Christian thought that she or he could attain God by abandoning everything. We give it all up to go to God. We're on the ladder of spiritual perfection, and God will reward our beautiful earthly lives. Now, it's like, no, get involved with the mess, because this is where God is, and we can only find God in and through this earth. Suffering at times, damaged, fragile, falling apart. God loves it all, and God's in it all. So I think an evolutionary way of thinking means a new dynamic way of looking at ourselves and the world. And here's the thing. In an evolutionary paradigm, the future is open, and we do not know where we're going. That is the beauty of it all. But that in our age of control, in the illusion of control, we think we've got to map it out. When I retire, I'm going to move here. I'm going to buy this house. Then when my brother's like this. Then when I'm 85, I'm going to move into this retirement place. And we've got it mapped out right till the end. And I'm like, well, what if it is? You make some plans. If they don't work, all right, just see where life will, take you, because who knows in 5 to 10 years' time what the world will be like. So I think we need to, a new type of consciousness of evolution is a type of letting go. And I think maybe it's an opportunity for us to redefine the gospel beatitude of poverty of spirit. That beatitude that says, blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And I think we always thought, if I give all my stuff away to Goodwill and Salvation Army, I'm going to go to heaven. Now we realize, if I let go, I dispossess myself. I don't control. I let myself be grasped by the encounters of life. That I begin to see this world for what it is, imbued with God. Heaven is not a place up there. Heaven actually is this world, seen in its truest reality. And so what Teilhard thought is that we can move to a new level of socialization, but we need the will and the energy to work for it. And I see today that we don't have the will to work together. I find us in conflict, religious conflict, ethnic conflict, the fact that we have to highlight that Black Lives Matter, because we're not sure, do they matter? So we've developed a culture of bias, of opposition, of conflict, and Teilhard's saying, no, we must believe that we share in the same cosmic roots and the same cosmic process, and we're in this together. So, something that we said yesterday is, we do live in an unfinished universe. We're here for a very, very short amount of time, a blink of an eye. First thing is, enjoy yourself, will you? Don't be so serious about the whole thing. because we're entirely too serious. We're weighed down by the seriousness of life. So Jesus says, become like little children. And that means go out and play. Go have some fun and chase butterflies and be awed by stars and falling leaves and little daffodils. Recover the wonder of being alive. Second is death, as we just said recently. Death is integral to life. No death, no life. So be free to die all along the way. When people don't agree with you, they're like, hey, she doesn't get she doesn't get what I'm saying. I get what you're saying. I don't agree with you, okay? So, okay, you don't like what I say. That's great. You want to have a beer, but we cling to things, right? They don't like my ideas, my theories. I worked on these for years, And it's like, oh, that's nice. So, it's okay. Let it go, all right? It's a good idea. It may work for some. Try it out. It might be helpful. But it's not so much what we come up with, it's what we do with what we have. So I think we have to realize that we are not fixed, but dynamic becomings. And here's the beauty of it all. You let go, and you actually have space for other people to enter in, for newness to enter in, for different ways of connecting. And so what we find ourselves today is we have built a world of closed systems. I'm a little black box. Here's what I do. I teach. Please do not in any way try to tamper what I teach or interfere with it because I'm a black box. But really, we're called to be open systems. And that means, I have this job. It's called being a teacher, a professor. This is what I do. Now, tomorrow I may be called to something else. It was nice, it was fun, and let me flow into what the new may be. What do we hold on to? Open systems go where life flourishes. Closed systems hang on until the energy is worn down and the box dies. So a little chaos can go a long way. As we said yesterday, we always strive, in the past we strove for equilibrium. Have a life of balance. Make sure you eat all properly. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't eat properly. You really should. But, most of our bodies, by the way, biologically, physiologically, work on the mechanisms of chaos. The brain works primarily on chaos. You might feel it at times. The heart works on chaos. Chaos theory is an open system theory where it has a pattern, but the system's open, so new things can emerge. The system is pulled over time into a new pattern. And that's how life can flow in a new way. We develop patterns of life that can be open to new patterns over time. So we live, and we are called to live, I think, between life's potentialities and rhythmic flow. I think flow is a better word than certainly fixed, because it is a world of quantum reality, where at every moment we are held open to an infinite number of possibilities. In fact, at any one moment, we're probably living in multiple worlds. Even though your body's here, you may be occupying another part of the universe. Your mind. So what we're called to do is to kind of gather ourselves and make a choice for this moment. That this is where I am. So I would say, don't try to, even as you try to forge the future for the church, be too precise or too definite about everything. It's not about deterministic future. It's about linking people and dreams. And that's a better way. That, life emerges when we wire together and fire together. Rather than trying to impose, goals and ideals. The brain can change, and that's good news for us older folks, that we really can think in new ways. We can take on new ways of being. We are not, for years, up until only recently, we thought the brain at a certain age just stopped changing. Now we know that's not true, that it can change. So I do think we have to de-engineer ourselves. We have developed a very mechanistic way of life. It's been very comfortable on one hand. It has allowed us to build up successfully, businesses, consumer malls, all types of developments. But we have begun to treat one another as little mechanisms, you don't like my idea, I don't like your idea. I think your machine needs to turn off, and mine needs to keep going. So we can be very hard on one another. I don't have to preach to the choir here, but we can be, for all the good that we're capable of, we really have the capacity for violence. We have the capacity to crucify one another. We have the capacity to crucify ourselves. And so I think the work that you do here in the inner self, in contemplation, is coming to not just the truth of what we are, but the capacity of what we are. We have the capacity for infinite love, for that incredible life of fullness. And we have the capacity for hell. We have the capacity to cut ourselves off maybe for all eternity. So, I think someone mentioned before, Eddie Hillesum, and she's one who I often bring up because here was a young woman at 28 years old who wasn't even religious. She was actually a literary person who loved the nightlife and dabbled in philosophy, and then, she found herself in this concentration camp. And I don't know if you've ever been to Auschwitz or, any of the concentration camps, but they are grim, grim places. I was in Auschwitz about 10 years ago, and gray, cold, concrete walls with these cells, just wooden planks, people piled in like layers on a sandwich, cheese and salami. And here she is, and she begins to talk to God. She starts writing letters to God. And she begins to realize, each of us moves things along in the direction of war every time we fail in love. There is no war that we have not been a part of in some way. And that's hard for us to get our heads around. But if we take what science is telling us, that nature is deeply entangled fields of energy, that our actions, every act of picking a flower can move a star, that our thoughts can actually change the stars, can impact people, then we can rest assured that our moments of anger, jealousy, hurt, the inability to forgive, our own sloppiness perhaps within our own lives, every time we have failed to love ourselves, we have contributed to war. And so there is no war out there that hasn't begun in here. And so the first path, I think, to evolve to a world of peace and justice is to begin to love ourselves in a right way, because that is the gospel injunction. There is no real love of God or love of neighbor without love of self. And we have a lot of self-loathing. I think, again, especially among young people, there's no sense of self-worth, that you are lovable as you are. The beauty of you. You don't have to construct your profile online. You don't have to sculpt your hair like a porcupine or put earrings throughout your ears and, nose. You don't have to mark yourself with tattoos, because we know who you are. God knows who you are as you are, and you are lovable. And when we begin to live out of that center of love, the world then can begin to breathe in peace. And so that's what Eddie Hillesum says. Now and then I can snap at my neighbors. We don't have enough love, and yet there's love bound up inside us, and if we could release it into the world a little each day, we would be fighting war and everything that comes with it. In an age of war, maybe this is what we need to do. Just release a little bit of love each day. Create those morphogenetic fields, for others to tap into. But as we said before, Eddie realized absolute love will not save us from suffering. In fact, if we really love, we can be guaranteed that we will suffer. If we really love, that means we will be thrown headfirst into that unfinished process of life, where even in the midst of suffering, we will be, called to love, to create life. So as Eddie realized, you can't help us, God. We can help you, though. and defend your dwelling place inside us to the last. We are the dwelling place of God. We are the Christ now, right? God has no place on earth to rest but within us. So, Eddie had this great idea, like, I'll never burden my today with cares about tomorrow. The only moment I really have is now, and that now is the opening of my future. So, we are saying that we are part of a creative whole of unlimited potential, and we are constantly being drawn into this whole, into a new existence together. I think what Teilhard, began to realize is even we cannot be saved except through this universe and as a part of this universe. That's still hard for us to get our heads around. But that's the ecological call, There is no salvation outside ecology. There is no salvation outside evolution. There is no salvation outside this cosmos. That the whole is God incarnating God's self unto the fullness of love. So, the fact is, here's the good news. What Teilhard realized, Omega is already an alpha. The end is already in the beginning. We're not going to something, we're awakening to something. It's like the blossoming of a flower. The seeds are already in us. We need to nurture those seeds. Or as one writer says, we're engaged in a journey without distance to a place we've never left. So I would say, again, we work hard at this, but sometimes I think this is really so simple. And it is, I do think the inner self, the work of the inner self is vital to the life of the world. And that does mean that widening of that inner space. I find with many of the saints and the mystics, what they had was a wide inner space. They had a place for hospitality, the hospice as the stranger. I was naked and you welcomed me, hungry and you fed me. Do we have a place to welcome the other into our lives? And so we need to widen that inner space. Again, the flow of withinness and withoutness. I think that's more of the language that we kind of need in the 21st century. That as we widen the inner space, we welcome in, then we go out. And we go out to new relationships, to new attractions. And all of that is, in a sense, living in what we might call deep incarnation. Trusting that we are not alone. We are not alone. That the one who has breathed life into our lives is at the heart of our lives. And that which we name as God, as the absolute love. So, forgive. Forgiveness is not something of getting over the past. It's the act of making a new future together. It's giving the good from one to the other. Recognizing that the past cannot be remade. That the only thing we have now is the future. And we can either choose to create a new future or we can remain in that past relics of separation. Poverty, reconciliation, all of these things are speaking not about let's make the world a happy place. These are values for future unfolding. And what we're saying is every act of kindness, every act of forgiveness is an act of future taking on a new reality. So as I said before, find what is fun. What do you do that is fun? And some people I like to read the New York Times, or I watch CNN. I'm like, fun, F-U-N, right? Like, do you play? Do we go on the swings? Do we go, on the playground? We need adult playgrounds, basically, And we worry. Oh, we are terrible worry warts, right? Money's a big thing, right? That's a reality. We worry, will we have enough money to retire? Will we have enough money for our children, for our grandchildren? Will I be able to keep my house? My God, we spend most of our waking earthly lives worrying, if we're going to just make it through. And, we may or we may not. I mean, what if we were? I often think to myself, the way I'm going, I could have widened up on the streets. Well, hey, what the heck? That could be interesting, I could meet a lot of new friends there. It probably would just shape my vision on things too. So I would just say, be joyful and hopeful. Be passionate. Albert Camus once had the statement, live to the point of tears. Live to where life really touches you and you are touched by it. Because that's when we can begin to stand in wonder and awe at this incredible gift of life that we are immersed in. And as Steve Jobs says, think different. Do not be afraid to think outside the box. Because this is how the Christ will unfold. I think this mystery that we name as the Christ, this divine love incarnating itself in you and me, in the flowers and the trees, in the skies and the quarks and the birds and the doves and the bacteria, even in rattlesnakes. This divine love for which there is nothing that is unloved, no one that is unloved. This can only come to a fuller personalization now in and through us. And so we do have to listen, right? What are the sounds? What do we hear? I mean, everywhere I go today, I'm like drowned out by television. I'm in the airport. There's multiple televisions going on. Everyone has earphones, in them. How can we possibly hear the sounds of love in our midst, the sounds of the Spirit? And I would just say, imagine. What do we imagine? We need artists. We need poets. We need musicians. We need to create the culture of the future. Because this is our hope. That, the future is our reality. It's our greatest reality. To realize that we are creating it and recreate it. So we do need to slow down a little bit. We're way too much on a treadmill. Everyone's driving in the fast lane, faster, 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 faster. And I love, especially in Washington, D.C., I'm driving the speed limit. Someone zips around me at 90 miles an hour, and we both wind up at the same red light. And I usually go... So, and some of the practices, we were talking about practices before. What if we were to go and talk to flowers? What if we were just to go and sit by a tree and just soak in the bark, the beauty of the leaves? Mary Oliver's poem, The Messenger, always speaks to me. My work is loving the world. My work is loving the world. That's how the poem begins. So standing still, learning reverence from such astonishments as a phoebe, a blue plum, or a clam buried deep in speckled sand. This is where we can learn from children. The beauty of a child and their innocence of wonder. They're on the beach and they're, looking through things. And we're all on our iPhones, worrying about the stock market. And they're there, being drawn into the wonder of creation. So what is the Christian, I think, in this new age? I think we need to be connected through the heart, through that deep mindfulness to the whole of life, attuned to the deeper intelligence of nature, but always, in a sense, being called forth by the Spirit to express our gifts in self-our world. Our gifts are not for ourselves. Whatever we have, whatever we're given, even our personalities are for something more than ourselves. So, in whatever we are, in wherever we are, whatever we define ourselves, to live with an evolutionary spirit is to let go when the right time comes and to engage new structures of relationship. That's a way of thinking that must now take root in our consciousness, because that's Christogenesis. It's this letting go when the right time comes and to engage new structures of relationship that are a deepening of consciousness and a deepening of love. And this is what the Spirit is doing. This Spirit who keeps breathing through us, inviting us to create anew. So what we are saying is if we want a different world, we have to become a different people. Google's saying, hey, well, you'll be a different people. You'll be a techno-sapien soon. You'll be cyber-sapiens. Maybe we need to be amor-sapiens. Maybe we need to be sapientia sapiens, but we need to create it and then we need to live out of it. One of my favorite prayers is by the former Jesuit Pedro Arrupe. And I think it just so sums up things. It's all about love. It really is. It comes down to something so deep, so deeply rooted, so deeply part of what we are. And he says, what you are in love with, what seizes your imagination will affect everything. It will decide what will get you out of bed in the morning, what you do with your evenings, what breaks your heart, and what amazes you. Fall in love, stay in love, and it will decide everything. We are in the evening of life, the sum of our loves. And the question at every moment is, what or who have we loved? Because what Teilhard thought is that love alone can lead us to the threshold of a new universe. Love is that deep power of attraction, that deep shift in consciousness, that opening up to life up ahead. So in Teilhard's view, we must advance all together in a direction in which all together we can find completion in a spiritual renovation of the earth. Throughout all of this journey is the power of God's love. And the power of that love is Trinity. The whole structure of reality is a triadic reality. It's about personal sharing, personal expression, personal bonding in a deepening of what we are on a conscious level, a social level, so that what is rising up in and through us is not just a bigger humanity. What is rising up through us is the very reality of God. And that's what Jesus prayed for, that all may be one. As you, Father, are in me and I am in you, that we are bound together. May we be one in you and you in us. That is our call and that is our future. Thank you. And as a postscript, so the Church of Conscious Harmony has really been very supportive, in fact, the prime supporter of the Omega Center. The Omega Center is an electronic forum that I began in August of this year as a way to deepen our understanding of religion and evolution so that we can begin to, the sub-theme is exploring love at the heart of the cosmos. How can, and its aim is to come to a new understanding of being in love, and the way that new understanding of ourselves in love can shift our thinking, our relationship together, how we act, and the choices we're making as we move forward. So it includes blogs from various writers, it includes interviews with me, and we'll keep developing it. And I'd probably love to develop a school of religion and evolution for the 21st century, to begin to create new language, invite new artists, because we need to now create our way forward. So, I invite you to subscribe to the Omega Center, at least log on, check it out, read the blogs, and that's it. Is that good? Is that a good commercial?